What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday. Unfortunately, I can't cover the comments and stuff and the feedback I've gotten through the week because I'm doing this the same week that I'm doing the Minnesota one because I'm going to be away. I'm actually on my way back as you see this. I took a little vacation. It was probably very nice, or at least it was fine, I'm sure. I need a break, so I hope it was all I needed it to be. So, today we're going to talk about something that I think we've all noticed, we've all talked about a bit, but we haven't really dived into it in any sort of depth. But I think it's something worth talking about, especially for people who are either A, new to the collecting of Transformers, B, starting to collect other things outside of Transformers, or C, thinking about logistics in terms for how they display things. So we're going to talk about options, we're going to talk about time, and we're going to talk about display. And this one's been a long time coming. What we're talking about is collecting Legends versus collecting Masterpiece. And in regard to this, we're talking about G1 cartoon representation. So we're going to start with options. And we're going to start with Season 1. The Masterpiece line of Season 1 is pretty much taken care of at this current point between Takara and third party. There's some that we wish were better. Well, I guess I shouldn't speak for all of us, but there's some that I definitely wish were better. But we do have representation. Fans Toys, I'm looking at you. Where's my Trailbreaker mag? Now let's run down third party options for Season 1. DX9 has Dutch for Optimus Prime. There was an Arc Studio Blue Streak and Prowl, but from what I gather, they weren't great, but they do exist. DX9 has Ironhide and Ratchet. New Age has Bumblebee. Hot Soldiers has Cliff Jumper. Magic Square has Sideswipe. DX9 has a set of Dinobots. Magic Square has Huffer. Magic Square has a Trailbreaker. Again, Fans Toys. Where's my Trailbreaker mag? There's also some Hasbro options that I think would fit in seamlessly. Brawn and Gears stand out as obvious choices, but there are other options as well, which pretty much leaves us with a few holes: Sunstreaker, Jetfire, Mirage, and Wheeljack. For the cons, DX9 has a Megatron, a Soundwave. They also have a Laserbeak and Ravage, which do come with the Soundwave. A set of Seekers, and a Devastator, as well as a Reflector. Hasbro has a set of Insecticons that I think would work, so what we're really missing is a Shockwave, Rumble, and Frenzy. Now Hasbro has a Shockwave as well. There's probably something you can find for Rumble and Frenzy due to the size, but I'm not sure it will work properly as we want it with the Ravage and Laserbeak. So hardly any holes whatsoever in the con department. Season 2. Magic Square has a Beachcomber, Blaster, Sea Spray, Inferno, and Grapple, and probably a Hoist to come out of that Trailbreaker mold. Mr. Moon has a Perceptor. There's some sketchiness around that, as we all know from previous Sit Down Saturdays, but it does exist. Arc Studio has a Smokescreen, which we've already kind of covered. Hasbro has a decent Cosmos and Power Glide. Hasbro also has a Warpath, which leaves the Aerial Bots, Protective Bots, Skids, Tracks, and we can use one of many Omega Supremes, including the one we're probably going to get from the Siege line. As far as cons, there's a bit more holes. Magic Square is doing a Stunticon set, and DX9 has the Cone Heads. Buzzsaw, Combaticons, Blitzwing, and Astro Chain remain holes. Now, as for Masterpieces, we pretty much have everything covered at some level, with obvious new molds needed for Astro Train, the Protectobots, because I don't think the Generation Toys is going to quite work. And once again, Fans Toys, I'm looking at you for that Blitzwing. Where's that? Where's that? Where's that? Season 3 is when things start to fall apart. Now for Masterpieces, we have most things covered once again. We are missing some. We're missing a set of decent Autobot tapes. We're missing a Broadside. We're missing a Throttlebot set. We're missing a Skylynx. We'd probably like a better set of Technobots, Terracons, and Predacons, as well as an Overkill and Slugfest. And of course, a Runabout and Runamuck. But for Legends, we have DX9's Arcee, DX9's Cup. We have New Age Goldbug, iGear Pipes, Magic Square has Ultra Magnus, DX9 Blur, DX9 Ratbat, DX9 Galvatron, Cyclonus, and Scourge, which does leave a lot of holes. Technobots, Skylynx, which you could probably use the MMC reformatted Skylynx for, door, rewind ram horn, eject steel jaw, broadside, the throttle bots, six gun, sandstorm, wreck guard. Springer would be another hole. But you do get a significant amount of Hasbro options for wheelie and tailgate, scamper, hot rod, etc. For the cons, we're missing Terracons, Predacons, Octane, Overkill, Slugfest, Runabout, Runamuck. The good news is you can use Hasbro's Triptychon and Hasbro's Metroplex for a really impressive scale piece. More on that later. The other good news is you could theoretically get a Unicron for this line, which would be quite impressive as a centerpiece. And then we're going to talk about Season 4 briefly. For Masterpiece, we have a lot of holes. We've mentioned these before. I'm not going to bore you with them now. For Legends, we don't have as many. We can use the Fort Max from Hasbro, but we're mainly just missing the Target Masters. The Headmasters are all accounted for with unique toys. Pretty much the same thing on the Decepticon side. There's also Hasbro options for the Decepticon and Autobot clone, except for Six Shot, which we would add to it. And I'm sure a Scorponok will come from Hasbro at some point. There's also some additional options that are worth thinking about. There's the IDW Swerve from Make Toys, as well as the IDW Tailgate from Make Toys that you could probably integrate. And if you start to stray away from the G1 look, you can get into the Iron Factory stuff, and then the gaps become even smaller, but the scale suffers. So we'll leave them out of it for the time being. And now we need to talk about time. And what we have to take into consideration is that these leaps and bounds that have been made in the Legends department have happened pretty much over the past 1.5 to 2 years, whereas the third-party stuff has kind of been going on for 4 to 5, depending on how you see it, in terms of Masterpiece. So they've narrowed the gap very quickly, and they're able to crank them out, and they're much more affordable. There's pros to that. Also, because of the price point, I bet you they're willing to take more of a gamble on more obscure characters. Whereas with the Masterpiece stuff being more expensive, I get the impression they're less willing to take a gamble. So you could theoretically never have a full Masterpiece collection, but on the other hand, be much more likely to have a full Legends collection. Now let's talk about display, because that's where I have to subscribe to Masterpiece. The Masterpieces will always display more powerfully. Because of their size, because of their detail, because of their paint, they're always going to display more prominently. And for my collection and the way it's set up, that's where I get the bang for my buck. Displaying a Legends collection can be very difficult. They're too small for most shelves. You usually have to make something custom for them to really display them, or keep them as an office piece or kind of novelty decoration. However, what you could do is display a ton on the base modes. And if you set up podiums or small tables, displayed the city bots in base mode, and put all the Legends, Season 3 with Metroplex and Fort Max, Season 4 with Fort Max, Season 2 with Omega Supreme, Season 1 with Omega Supreme, the same for Triptychon and Scorponok and the like, that can create a very impressive display. It's just in kind of rethinking how you would go about it. So I think it's interesting, and I think it's a wonder that it's kind of taken off the way it has, but I think at the price point and the versatility in how you can display them, if you're able to think outside the box to accomplish it, a Legends collection could be more impactful than an MP collection, depending on the space that you have available. I'm very fortunate to have a wife that's very understanding of my childhood traumas that have led me to this connection to meaningless shit. That being said, not everyone does. So if you're working with a smaller display space, you can get a lot more bang for your buck with the Legends. They'll never be quite as impactful as a Masterpiece collection, but you can still have strong representations of all the characters you adore, with a stronger possibility of actually completing the collection if you're thinking 1 through 4. Which I'm not sure you're going to be able to do with Masterpiece. Time will tell, of course. So if you're well into collecting, you probably more than likely have an idea of how you want to do business. If you're just starting out, take these things into account. Take the space and logistics into account. Take the display options and how you do it into account. Even with a small room, you can probably do a full MP run. That's probably going to be all you get in there. And if you're just a Transformers fan exclusively, that's fine. But if you're like me, it's not okay. Take your budget into account. Masterpiece is very expensive. Legends are expensive in terms of what we think of when we think of a Legends price, but in the long run, for what you're getting, not so bad. If we take third-party pricing in the terms of a chug costing about 20 bucks and an MMC chug costing about 80 to 100, you're talking something that's 4 or 5 times more the price. Legends on the other side, you're talking about 3 times, maybe 4. Stuff to think about. What am I doing there? I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer. It just comes down to your logistics, your money, your space, your time, and the probability of actually completing the collection in terms of how you see it. And that's really what I wanted to do, was show you what options were out there and think about how you want to approach it. I'm also interested in how many people are doing an MP collection and a Legends collection. I find that to be pretty curious. So, hope that was worth watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.